So everybody, welcome here to Speak Up Monday. Every Monday here at Tropical Nomad. This is episode number 397. Tonight my guest, Spencer Tarring. Got it right, yes! Which we'll get into in a minute. My name's Robert Ian Bonnick, otherwise known as the growth strategist in Indonesia, a bridge between foreign investment, government, and private enterprise. Now, so as you know, Speak Up Monday is award-winning for motivation. Also, we focus on entrepreneurism and social impact, right? So those are the two legs that underpin every episode, as well as two really important things. So one is people inspire people, and unity in diversity. So these are the two kind of, like the two legs which everything stands on. So tonight, my guest, in a minute, I'm going to get him to introduce himself. So much easier. But what I like about you already, apart from being English, an Englishman, here we go, is, he wears, it seems like many different hats. Entrepreneur, right? Music director. He's in the Web3 industry, as well as many other industries from what we're about to say, like property and so on. So how do all of these things coalesce? Who is he behind all of the titles and the topics and the success? What are the failures where he has failed miserably? What are they? How does he approach that? How can we learn from that, right? Also, what brought him to Bali, right? Bali has this incredible way of bringing some incredible people together. And for those of you from overseas, because this is Speak Up Monday, Destination Indonesia. So Indonesia has almost 300 million people, over 17,000 islands, 500 cultures, 200 languages, and I could go on forever. But look, let's get this started, by saying, Spencer, firstly, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much. Congratulations on 397. That's quite amazing, really. To keep that going that long.
Thank you, mate. I mean, I'm locked and loaded. It's never going to stop. Have wonderful people like Carol in the front here. So we have some wonderful co-hosts that either a guest co-host or permanent, whichever way. But therefore, we kind of mix it up, but it's always within that orbit, right? Okay, so let's start here. The title is about synchronizing, all these different industries, music, blockchain, right, business together. So if I would ask you, right, if there's an overarching connection to all of them, what would that be?
It's a very kind of big question to start with, isn't it? Right?
Big question, mate.
Straight in the deep end.
Straight in, mate.
I didn't come up with the word synchronizing. I don't know who wrote that into that introduction, by the way. I think it was Rhonda, who's somewhere around. No, I've kind of a lot of the stuff I've done, I've just fallen into a lot of the time. I started off doing business because I thought it would make a good chance to have influence with other people. That's kind of one thing that drove a lot of the stuff. And then when music came along to become a DJ, that had even more influence, but very directly because you could see what was happening at all times. And then as I got a bit older, I couldn't keep up with the DJing so much, so I had to go back to business, and then still wanted to pursue it on the side. But I'm not sure if they're all synchronized, by the way. I think they're kind of one part at one time, and then I have to do something else, and I'm putting out fires over here and then putting things out over there. It's not quite as glamorous as it seems on the front as it is behind. There's a lot of stuff that goes in behind that's not so much forward that you can see.
I think one of the things which does bring it together, right? You mentioned about, bringing things together, bringing people together. I hear this in what you're doing. The projects always seem to be, look, and there's Rhonda. Hello, darling. Come and join us. There you go. Right? So there's a whole bunch of different aspects to all of these businesses, but they're all connected, right? So if I would say to you, let's hone in to the Web3 space, right? So what is it that you've done in that Web3 space, and what was the purpose of it? What is it setting out to do? And where are some of the sticking points? Where are some of the success points?
So my background was in IT. When I left school, I was doing web design, and we were 16, 17, and people would ask me, Spencer, why do I need a website? And it was a serious question. Why do I need it? It was more aggressive than that, basically saying, no, I don't need a website. So we'd spend a lot of our time trying to convince people to get websites. And then obviously looking back now, it's a rather silly question to ask, isn't it, if you look back in the hindsight? Yeah. So after coming through music and then back to business in that kind of full cycle, the timing of blockchain and Web3 was, for me, felt very similar to when I was getting into internet in the first case. And a lot of people would say, what is Web3? Why do I need an NFT? Why do I need Bitcoin? Why do I need all these kind of things? And it resonated strongly with me because it was very similar to the experiences I had 20 years earlier doing my internet business. So the projects that I set out to, we did, initially I was doing Bitcoin mining actually in China. So I'm a very strong believer in Bitcoin and what I think it's going to do for the world actually. We've seen over the last few years the money printing that's going on in the US. There's obviously a lot of turmoil, war going on in the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia. There's China as a rising power where I lived for a long time. And I just, I'm reading a lot of books, a couple of Ray Dalio books, and it's quite clear that the USD is not going to be the currency that's underpinning the world for the rest of time. It's going to collapse at some point. And I truly believe that Bitcoin is going to be replacing that, because I don't see anyone accepting China's currency. I don't see anyone else accepting Russia's currencies. No one's going to be able to agree amongst them all, at which point Bitcoin is the only true monetary system that can be fair amongst everyone. And I think the adoption is very, very slow until it becomes very fast. And I think it will take some kind of big black swan event, like maybe World War III, I don't know, something like this, or a big collapse in the monetary system, a big depression, and that will come along. So that's one part of it. That's the Bitcoin side. I was doing Bitcoin mining in China for a while. And you're doing some Bitcoin mining in Africa, you mentioned. Yeah, we've got a project going on at the moment, yeah. So I talk about that now, or let's finish the Web3 stuff. So the Web3 NFT stuff is kind of laid on top of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency built off blockchain, but blockchain enabled a lot of other projects to happen with kind of like this idea of decentralizing ownership and having a trustless network for you to own something without having to prove to someone else, having a third party to say you do own it. We did a few projects on it 2 or 3 years ago. A couple of them didn't work. And it was very difficult to deal with actually, because a lot of the people that were coming in to those projects, a lot of the investors were coming in were, in my opinion, they were not experienced investors that really knew exactly what the risks and rewards were to these investing in these projects. So one of the projects was for instance, we did one doing VR solutions for the travel industry. And we raised quite a bit of money for it. We spent a lot of time. We worked very, very hard on that project for a year and a half. We exhausted the funds. Didn't quite work out. And I wasn't running the project. I was like a director with my partner who was mainly running the project, but my face was on it. And it was quite difficult going through that period where a lot of people had invested money. They didn't make returns on their money. And it was difficult to explain to people, not everything works. Look, Guy, you knew I was going to talk about you. So Guy is your dad, right? Here's the thing, right? So meeting your dad, it seems to me to be a very straightforward guy. It's a pretty straight shooter. The eyes that look through you, I noticed that in a good way, not in a bad way. So when something like that happens, right? So people invest in a project, you're the face of it, right? So you've got this inherent responsibility that other people place on you because they don't know your partner, they know you, or they see you, right? So then what kind of values, right? And this is where it goes back to your dad, right? 'Cause I think that he's sustained and instilled certain values within you, right? So this is where the connection is. So for those people watching who might be in a similar situation, that they've done something, it's not going well, and they've got this challenge to deal with, what kind of values that were instilled within you gave you the, may I say, the strength, right? He's laughing, I like that. The skill to deal with it. Because it looks like you have dealt with it. It doesn't look to me that that's something that is keeping you, awake at night in terms of to the negative. It seems to me like you've kind of said, this is what happened. You've dusted yourself off, and then you've moved forward into the next one. So people watching, what
kinds of values did you require during that time of, I'm guessing, intense speculation, finger pointing, people saying this and this and this about you? How do you rectify all of that with who you are as a person?
I don't think you're going to get the answer you're looking for here, to be honest. Like, I see a lot of it as kind of noise that's not important a lot of the time. Yeah. In that particular project, there are many people that don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And I think as long as you are doing the best that you can to do a project, that's all that matters. And as long as you're communicating that effectively, if it doesn't work out, you can explain that, but it's not your responsibility to beg for forgiveness. You know, when people are investing in a project with you, they must share in the downsides as well as the upsides, and they must be aware of that at all times. So while yes, it's frustrating to deal with that at some times, because, you know, obviously dealing with failure is not as fun as dealing with success, and I've had my fair share of both. I definitely think it's important to be able to brush it off and be able to move on. So
then that value...
So belligerence, I think, is probably...
Belligerence? All right. Are there any other values in there that people maybe watching here could cultivate? Because again, Web3 is in a spring or a winter right now. Summer's coming at some point. So people are going to be in this space. I mean, when you look at venture funds, it's a winter too, right? So there's less money available, less money going to projects. Like, how do you deal with this sort of situation, the values?
Well, I mean, I only put energy into, if I'm putting my own personal energy into those around me that are supporting me. If people are not supporting me around, then it just becomes noise. Especially if I know myself that I'm doing what I can, I don't need to then further explain myself at that point. With regards to doing business where there's not much capital available for investments, again, belligerence is very key, right? You just have to keep going. If you really believe something's going to work, you have to keep going. You have to keep doing it until the last breath is out of you. We had some very bad... I mean, this is one of the things that I actually struggle with from my first business. So when we first did my IT company, it was called Dedipower. It was a data center business. Originally, it was web design, but we started hosting websites, and we built a data center underneath my friend's stairs and told everyone it was a super secure location, can come see it. Then it got bigger, and then it turned into a real business. But during that period, there were some very dark times. You know, for instance, back then we had a 2 meg lease line. That doesn't sound very much now, but that was very big 20 years ago. And it would go down every few weeks or every month or something. A couple of the main servers would crash or something like that. And my business partner, who was the tech guy, was away for a few days in some tropical island with a tropical storm, couldn't connect. And I'm there having to deal with 400 people complaining their websites are down. And those kind of moments are really quite dark. And I think if you don't have the real desire to get through those periods, you can't. And what happened to me after I sold that business, and you make some wealth, I found it very difficult to start business again, because when you're starting a business, it's always difficult. And if you have wealth already, you try skip corners, and that doesn't end well. And I went through a couple of years of periods after that time of doing some bad investments and starting projects and then not finishing them because I got bored and because I didn't need to finish it. I didn't really have that deep desire to finish it. I skipped it. And that's taken me a long time to overcome, certainly, after selling my first business.
Appreciate your honesty, man. Thank you so much. So look, let's talk about, some of the successes, right? So again, we've been through just a few of those. By the way, in the audience, Brian Swan, there's a seat for you there, and Rhonda too. If you want it, you have to climb over the back. Don't worry. Yeah, all good. So hands up. See if you guys are awake, which I know you are. Entrepreneurs in the audience, raise your hand. Okay? All right. If you're not an entrepreneur, raise your hand. If you're not, right? Okay, there's a few confused people around here. There's one guy didn't put his hand up for anything. Are you listening? I'm joking. All right, good. Of the entrepreneurs, raise your hand again. High. Great. Keep your hand up if you faced a really difficult challenge that you think you would never overcome. Keep your hands up. All right. how did you overcome that challenge? One word, shout it out. George.
By finding balance.
Finding balance. Ian. Persistence. Leah. One word. Wine. So we have some alcoholics in the audience today. That's okay, that's okay. No one knows her face, but I'll give you her name afterwards. Relationships. Love it. Community. That's good. So, all right, let's do it like this. So, if I asked you about community, right, how important is that to you? And in the businesses that you've built, for example, let's move on to Mint, right, the one you're about to open. Tell us a little bit more about that and tell us the importance of community and how you're building community around that business.
Community as in like business partners or people that are surrounding you?
However you want to relate to it.
I'm a real, I'm a lone rider. Yeah. So I take a lot of weight on myself and like to deal with it myself, to be honest, most of the time.
Honesty is key.
Yeah. But some of my successful businesses, in fact, most of them have always been with a partner. And I guess I'm good at picking the right partner, maybe. I don't know. Like the first business, I had a very smart business partner. He did most of the stuff. Mint in Dubai is going to be with a partner. But they're all providing different attributes to the business, very different to what I provide. I think I provide maybe the vision and the idea and the encouragement to do it. I've done that on a number of times. I had one business in UK called Engage Tech, which was a telesales company. And that was with a good friend of mine called James. And he was doing this for someone else. So he was working at a big company. And I convinced him to quit, start a business with me, do it. We did it for 6 months, did really good. And then I wanted to go back to China. So he carried on running the business. That business is now turning over £12 million a year. It's a big business. I don't own it anymore. Sold the shares to him. But he did very, very well out of that. But I helped him the vision to do it. But I didn't necessarily have the actual skills in that business. So I'm not sure if that answers your actual question about community.
No, but it does, because you mentioned, and again, it was a leading question. I've been known to ask those leading questions before. But again, what this is about is kind of getting to understand you, right? And the questions are just like a way for you to speak into that. So sometimes it's not even about answering the question, it's what comes up for you, right? So let's talk a little bit more. If I asked you, right, so of all the successes that you've had, which one would stand above the rest and why? What would you say?
Well, the first one was the biggest one. So that was the data center company. It was quite interesting because I was only working there for 5-6 years, and then I actually fell out with my business partner, and he carried on running it, and I went off to start being a DJ. So I can't even take that much credit for that business, really, because most of the time he was running it. I mean, I don't think definitely couldn't have done it without me at the beginning for those first 4 or 5 years. But it became an amazing scenario for me because I was able to pursue other things that I was enjoying whilst he remained and ran the business. That was the biggest success for sure. It's been hard to eclipse that actually since then. I've done many more, but never as big as that, because I think a lot of the time I've done something, I've lost interest and I've moved on to something else. And in the meantime, I've been just diversifying investments into other properties and Bitcoin and stuff like this. So I've made similar amounts of money, but I've not eclipsed that in terms of a story and a success, which I'm hoping to. Actually, the next 2 projects I'm doing, which are a Mint in Dubai, which is the shareholder nightclub, that's a very interesting story in its own, which I could tell you about if you want.
I was going to get to that, so yeah.
And then we're about to do a very large Bitcoin mine in Uganda. They have a lot of hydroelectric power there that's not being used. And that power basically just dissipates into the air, so it's just wasted. There's about 800 megawatts of power, which is a lot. And the problem is they can't afford to build the transmission lines to send it to all the different, all the districts. And most of the districts, they use one light bulb in in the little house, so there's no demand for electricity. So you've got kind of like a vicious circle there. So Bitcoin actually represents a very eloquent solution to generating revenue from that unused power, because you can just charge electricity to miners. So we go there, we build out the infrastructure, all the shelving cabinets, the HVAC, the power systems, and then we basically rent the space to Bitcoin miners. We charge them 5 cents per kilowatt hour, and we pay 2 cents, and we make a spread. And it's a very effective way of generating revenue for both the government and the private investor there. So yeah,
love it. So this visionary aspect of you keeps coming up, right? Which is great. So what we're going to do is we got Guzman. Nope. Yes, Guzman's there. Hadis and Ayu. So we have his third microphone, right? So I've got a million questions to ask you, but I prefer to be led by the audience as well, because you've made, the journey to be here. Some from Uluwatu, took you a while. I know, traffic, fighting it. Others from nearer afield. So I think it's really nice to give you the opportunity as well to contribute to this. So just to give you a bit of insight, so there's about 5 cameras here, maybe even 6. So one of these cameras is like one that turns around. So if you decide or choose to ask a question, you will most likely be on camera, right? So if that's okay with you, go ahead. Remember the microphone, point it at your mouth, not down here, up here, all right? Remember to do that. So if you have a question, in the next couple of minutes, we're going to get that microphone to you. So if you haven't got one, think what one might be. If you have, be prepared to raise your hand, and we'll bring the microphone to you. Okay, Spencer. So what I see in you is a guy from the UK, which we haven't spoken about, but that's okay. We'll get to that maybe. But you've traveled around the world a bit. Now you're talking about Dubai. You're talking about Uganda, right? So what is your mindset around this? Like, do you actually see no borders? Like, why did you choose those locations, or did those locations choose you?
China chose me. So I just we were about to sell this business, and the guy that I DJ'd at Foray's club, Mint in London, had opened in Shanghai, and it was a random thing. Phoned me up, do you want to come and DJ this weekend? China? Okay, sure, I'll go. So I went and basically never went home. I really enjoyed it out there. It was very exciting being in a city that was fast growing. It was very electric. You never knew what was going to happen the next day. You're surrounded by, there was like 500,000 expats there. They're all exciting people. They all had their own stories to tell. It was just far more exciting than being in the UK, unfortunately. Obviously, UK is a much more developed place, and for me, extremely boring. So when I went out there, I immediately, this is where I want to be, stayed there for a long time. And then COVID, I came here on holiday actually, when COVID kicked off. I was here January 2020. The first word of COVID, I was like, okay, I don't really want to go back to China. Ended up staying here because I couldn't get back into China. So I stayed here for 3 years. During that time, I quit drinking actually during that time. So yeah, so 3 years no drinking now. And then, thank you. Yeah.
That was a huge applause for 3 years. Yeah. 3 years no drinking. All right, great to see you, Nigel. Your head looks good. Okay, Nigel has a question. So where's the microphone, or Ayu or Hadis? We're going to pass the microphone in that direction to that handsome-looking fella with a wonderful haircut, meaning he has no hair. But if you look really closely, he's got a haircut. He's looking good. So Nigel, we'll come over to you in a second. So while we're getting the microphone to you, so let's talk about Mint, right? So Shanghai, what is unique about Mint? Maybe people here, wait a second. Who here has heard of Mint? Raise your hand. Okay, so by default, I know it's like, anyway, who here has not heard of Mint? Raise your hand. Has not heard of Mint. All right, good. So please describe to us, what is Mint, what makes it unique, and why are you excited about it?
So Mint started 20 years ago, founded by a guy called Alistair Patton, and they opened in London. And it was the unique part about it was it's a shareholder nightclub. So 300-400 people come together, they put £10,000 in each, and they all own a part of a club. They share
fractionalized, tokenized.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, yeah, but they did it real shares, and they shared in the upside, downside, but they really created a community of people, like-minded people.
I knew that word would come back, Spencer. I knew it would come back.
You loaded it in there. So that evolved into, it was very small in the beginning, and they closed that venue, and they did Hong Kong as well. But when they opened Shanghai, it was a very spectacular venue. And they had a very powerful network of shareholders involved in it, which was extremely useful for Alistair. Unfortunately, he got a little greedy and got into some trouble with some things that were going on. He ended up selling the brand.
I love the way he's diplomatically kind of dancing around saying what he was doing, but it's okay, man. It's okay. I know we're on TV. It's okay, man. I'll ask you off camera what actually happened. But okay, man, let's continue. We're good.
So they got sold to a Chinese company, and then during COVID, everything shut down in China. So the brand doesn't exist anymore. In fact, the logo is still up on the 24th floor of the building there. But because of my connection with the brand and my friendship with Daniela, who was he was the general manager, managing director for the business for 10 years, we decided to acquire the brand and do it in Dubai. So we've just got the trademark in the UAE, which is great news. And the idea is we're going to open a venue in downtown. There'll be 300 to 400 shareholders. They'll put in $50,000 each, and we'll create an incredible network of like-minded individuals that all want to feel connected to something exciting, something cool, something they can go to and say, hey, I'm a shareholder of this venue. This is, particularly men are like that, like to show off a little bit. And when people invest into these kind of venues or this kind of setup, they don't necessarily, it's not about the money. It's about they want to feel like, I want to have a good time with this. So they're mitigating the downsides of that investment. If it works, they all get their share of the upside. They get paid the dividends. But the main thing is they want to have a place they can go and be important. And that's our job to create that for them. So we're looking for a venue at the moment. We've raised a reasonable amount of money already into the holding company, and that should probably open in November next year, maybe.
Great, well, we'll be looking out for it. Wonderful. So, Brother Guzman, if we turn that camera around to my brother from another mother, he was born during the day, I was born at night. That's the only difference. Our mother couldn't tell us apart from George. Maybe Guy could tell us apart too. All right, so mate, I think the mic is yours. Guzman is almost ready. Yeah.
Hello. Hey.
Oh, you're on camera. You're on camera. Yeah. You can go.
So I've got a two-part question.
Okay.
Brilliant to see you, by the way, both of you. I've got a two-part question. My first part is linked to how do you stabilize or link Bitcoin or cryptocurrency and legitimize it into a business, given that it's such a fluctuating and sort of, some say, Ponzi scheme, right? In that there's money in, money out. How do you stabilize that investment into what you do? And then my second part to my question is, how do you stabilize your own self into, given that you're in the nightclub business, have you stabilized your own attitudes and approach to that business in order to keep you stable too?
Okay. So we'll do the first part first. I noticed you, I think you're already slightly negative on Bitcoin with the way you described it. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
it's an up and down thing. Come on, it's a new, kind of still
it's
new.
It's very new,
and all that.
Yeah. Well, human history has proven that we like to collect things. We've started with, obviously, gold is what we've been using for the last 10,000 years or however long it has been. But we are on an irrefutable journey into digitization of everything. And if you're comparing Bitcoin to gold, it has so many more advantages. For instance, it's got a proven fixed supply. Gold, you don't actually know how much exists. When you buy gold, unless you've got it under your bed, you don't actually know you own that gold. It could be some made-up number at the bank, you've said. I won't go into all the advantages, but there are significant advantages. And if you agree that we are traveling to this digital world, then Bitcoin becomes a stronger. It's easier to believe that it could happen, and certainly considering all the things that are going on around the world. Now, if I talk about how I legitimize that in my business, I don't do business with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a personal investment for me because I believe in its future, really, because at some point it's going to become the world global reserve currency, I think, personally. I don't know when, but I just believe it will. So therefore, I'm investing in it because I see it as a just in case I'm right. You know, it's not something that I say, yeah, go put all your money into Bitcoin. But just in case I'm right, I put some of my money into it. And actually, I've got a large investment portfolio from property to stocks and businesses and stuff like this. The least stressful investment and the most secure investment of everything I've got is Bitcoin. Wow. It's the hardest form of money. No one can take it off me. I don't need to manage it and check the tenants every week. I don't need to fix the roof. I don't need to worry that the company's going bust. If I was a little bit more crazy, I would probably sell everything and just have all Bitcoin and just sit there and just spend it as I need it. So yeah, I don't legitimize it into my business, but I am a proud Bitcoiner, and I will say people that just in case I'm right, you should do it. Coming on to the second part of the question, I haven't drunk for 3 years because obviously I spent 7, 8 years, 9 years DJing in China, did a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, and obviously that comes with a kind of reputation. And I felt it definitely affected me being able to do other business because people wouldn't necessarily take me so seriously. I was constantly didn't know whether to introduce myself as a DJ or as a business owner or whatever. It was very difficult. I was kind of always ashamed a little bit. I'm a DJ, like this kind of thing. It's a bit. So part of the reason I quit drinking was because I wanted people to take me more seriously, and it's quite a statement to make actually when I meet people and they're like, "Oh, I have a drink." "Oh, no, you don't drink." "Oh, you don't drink?" "Yeah, for 3 years not drinking." People definitely listen to you. They think, okay, this guy's serious, he's disciplined, he's got something to say. What's he got to say? Because I want to listen. Whether I'm going to be able to maintain that strategy next year after opening Mint Dubai, I don't know. It will be
everyone who's watching the show has now got a license, right? If you see this guy in Mint, right, in Dubai, and see him drinking, just say, "Hey, listen, mate, I watched SpeakuP Monday. What are you doing, fella?"
Well, my upside is I've got my partner as the operational guy, so he's going to run it. That's the I'm not going to be.
You see, you're very good at choosing the right partners. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, for the drinkers in the room, how you stopped drinking?
I made it a part of my identity, so I used my ego for myself. So when I introduce people or people talk to me and I say I don't drink, that's who I am. And if I drunk, one glass of wine, once a week or something like that, I wouldn't be able to say that to someone. Yeah. And I feel like a very powerful, I feel elevated when I talk to someone and I can say that. Yeah. So I guess I'm using my large ego in a positive way for myself, making it part of my identity.
I love that.
Thank you so much.
Now, Nigel, I'm going to get you to pass the microphone on, but before you do that, now keep the microphone, Nigel. No, you're listening? Keep the microphone. Right, so you have a podcast, right?
Yes.
What is it? Tell us. 30-second pitch. Come on, Nigel. Let's go. 30 seconds.
Okay, well, it's called Bent Planet. It's Bent Planet News. We just tell weird stories because I love podcasts, and we take the top 10 stories weirdest stories from around the world, and we, rap about it. And it usually involves beer, I'm sorry to say. But, I think podcasts have a huge future. They are already exploding in America and now in England. I think they've become such a mainstream media and entertainment. I use them mostly for just falling asleep.
5 seconds.
That's it.
You did good, Nigel. All right, pass on. Round of applause for Nigel, everybody. Go on. All right. So, podcasts, right? Who else had a question, by the way? Just raise your hand. Right, typical, on the other side of the room. Okay, we'll get the microphone to George. Podcasts, right. Thank you, Nigel. Nice segue.
Thank you, Nigel.
So, podcasts. So, you've started a podcast.
I have started a podcast,
So, tell us about it. I won't give you 30 seconds like I gave to Nigel. I know he can do it. I know he can. Love you, Nigel. So, tell us about it. What is it? Why'd you do it? What makes it different?
It's called Lockstock FM. The idea of lockstock. The fucking lot.
Barrels.
Yeah, well, whatever. That was the nicer way of putting it, but yeah. The idea of it is, I do believe that you are either a producer of content or a consumer of content. If you are a producer of it, there's ways to monetize it. Because I've got many interests, I think if I was to stop everything and just do my podcast, I think it would be maybe more than what I'm doing right now. I really could make something of it like that. But the main aim of my podcast is because I want to build my network. And I find it a very effective way of getting to know someone quite intimately and building quite a rapport with the person, especially if I'm looking to build a shareholder nightclub where I want to have a few hundred people that are of interest, similar-minded people. I think to get to sit down with someone for an hour and talk to them without having a phone on the table or without having a telephone call is very rare. So the conversations are very interesting. I think it's a little stressful to kind of, I've got to do it this week. I've got to get one more done. Trying to keep that up. It's really, really very difficult. I've done 5 podcasts the last 4 days, so I've been absolutely slack because I wanted to have a month off for doing it. But the idea is it's really for me to build my network and my sphere of influence. And I guess I've got an interesting story. Some people like to listen to it. I say some stupid stuff. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
I know, so far he's kept it in. I was going to say, Ian, ask him a question. Ian was with him many years ago, but I'll save you, mate. I'll save you. So, George, do you have the microphone yet or not? Yeah. Oh, Rhonda, good. No, you're first. Okay, he can wait. George is good.
Sorry,
all right.
George.
So, by the way, just to let you know, Sister Rhonda, who's about to speak, is a sister. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. The other day, it was interesting. So, as many of you know, we're almost up to 400 episodes, right? So, it's every week. We don't miss one, Spencer. Every week. And part of what I do here is I'm a bridge between foreign investment, Indonesian government, and foreign enterprise, right? Within that circle or that triangle, let's say, there's a lot of work that we do bridging the gap between foreigners and locals, right? Indonesians. And so some of the projects I'm involved in are how do we bring foreigners and Indonesians together on investment type projects, which isn't always about money, in villages and banjars and desas, right? Something which I love to do because it's part of who I am as an identity and just what I love to do. So there's one particular king. His name is Erawan, which I think George knows. There's a few people here that know him. He's been on the show. Incredible guy. Through Erawan, I've learned so much about Balinese culture, what underpins the thing that we love, the thing that we're drawn to, attracted to, and we're just impacted by it to the positive. From doing a ceremonial cremation, which I hosted, of his father, 11 hours, talking on the microphone, wasn't tired at all, right? Lontar ceremony, a bit like a Dead Sea Scroll for every community that's 350 years old, this particular one, and many, many other ceremonies around that. Now, that led me to working with people like the tourism minister of Indonesia, Sandiaga Uno, to Bambang Susiato, who's the president of the chairman of the People's Republic. Some very powerful people that have opened my mind to Indonesia as a whole. All of that started because of Sister Rhonda, who you're about to hear from, who had this gig which she asked me to speak at along with Gil Petersall, who's been on the show. That's another guy who's a close friend that you connected us to. And so it's interesting that the circle always moves, right? But it comes back to the same place. And the next thing we're going to do, which I'm going to say live on camera today, is that we're working on an initiative which is about how do we attract people to Bali, which are, let's say, maybe a bit afraid or scared to come to Indonesia for different reasons. How do we do that in such a way without saying, everybody come, but by saying, this is Bali, this is what it is. If this resonates with you, feel free to come, and we will provide roads, pathways, and access to ensure that you're looked after, right? So these are some of the things which I love doing on a private-public partnership level. So I think that's a pretty long intro. Oh, and by the way, she's like the top 5 in the world personal branding agency called Unstoppable Branding Agency. Her beautiful husband, the unstoppable surfer, their daughter, Hanalei, all have been on the show. Love that episode, by the way. Incredible family, incredible people who call Bali home, and I'm glad to call them very close friends.
I hope you got a good question after all that.
I don't even remember.
Rhonda always has good questions. What are you talking about?
Amazing. Thank you for that. And you know what's really interesting is that I interviewed Robert on my show, the Help Me Rhonda show.
400,000?
No, you're like, I think now you're up to like 600,000 views.
600,000 views.
He's got a brilliant story if you don't know it because he supports everyone, you know. But listen to Robert's story even more deeply. So that was pretty amazing. But if I may, because you did open up the kind of our can of worms, which is this new initiative. And we had an idea, I had this crazy spark that was like, okay, what is affecting us as shareholders now? And those that, not just us as shareholders, but the island itself, you know, and that means whether it's trash or there's, you know, too many things being built, or, you know, population, or, you know, how do we get better funding? How do we bring more people in for, you know, is the infrastructure, you know, sound, right? So all these things come up. And I had this idea the other day, and I'm like, Robert, I'm in town, please come and have me for lunch. So if you would listen and tell me what you think about this, imagine, has anyone ever watched David Attenborough or heard his voice from National Geographic?
Yep.
Or Morgan Freeman? Have you heard that? And you just want to watch it. You just want to listen. You want to continue to watch. I found myself the other night, it was the middle of the night, literally probably 12, 1 in the morning, and all of a sudden this Morgan Freeman's voice came on, and it was this, it was like, what was in the Penguins? It was like it was an AI generated movie, and I would never watch that, but it was his voice. And I watched the whole thing, and it was stunning. It was about, you know, the growth of our planet. And I went, that's it. Robert Bonnick is going to be Bali's Morgan Freeman. Imagine how fun will it be, do you know? Because everyone recognizes Robert, they know the work that he does, and to then create this video initiative where it will support everything that we're doing on Bali and all of our individualized things that we do. Would that be really fun to have Robert's voice being the one that kind of narrates what's going on in Bali? Yeah, man.
This is where we'll say yes.
Yes, come on.
What was that? Yes.
Like, really? Well, anyways, it's going to be brilliant, and you're going to love it because you're going to share it. We're going to ask you to share it. Okay, let me. Thank you, Robert. But again, because he supports all of us, and he does this day in, day out. Thank you for your work. Okay, Spencer. So this is quite exciting because I know a little bit about what's coming on behind Mint, and I also know that the New York Times wants an article, or they want to learn more about you and publish an article about this initiative once it does come out. Can you share what is different for you building and operating a business or opening a new business in the UAE than it would be, let's say, if you were coming from London? And what are maybe some of the challenges or, you know, the benefits that you might have by deciding to do it in Dubai?
On a technical level, like legal-wise, or all kinds of...
Well, maybe if there's something that pops out for you,
Well,
you know?
UAE, a lot of it is based off English common law, which is quite proud as an English guy. So I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, we did do some good, and I found UAE, or Dubai in particular, to be just very exciting place to be. Lots of people there looking to make money. Lots of people there looking to invest in projects. I moved there. It took me 2 weeks to buy an apartment, move in, get my resident 10-year residency, get a driving license, everything. Took a little longer to set up the business. I found that to be a bit restrictive. It was quite expensive setting up the holding company. About $10,000 as compared to maybe a UK company was only cost maybe £200-300 to set up. Right, it's quite quicker and much quicker. So that was partly quite restrictive. But with regards to attracting talent and people that are hungry, and I don't mean literally people that are actually hungry because they haven't got any food. I mean hungry because they want to make money and they want to be successful. It's a very good place to be. Dubai has created this utopia for business and lifestyle and for people that are, I mean, it's open arm for people that are willing to come there and provide value. I mean, there's a slight bit of a two-class system there, which is a bit uncomfortable at some times. But everyone there, from what my understanding, is there through choice. They're there to work, or they're there to invest money. And stark contrast to being in the UK, where I feel like you're overtaxed. It's not very safe.
How would it compare to Singapore?
Singapore is very boring. Yeah, very, no. It's because it's just a little dry, nightlife industry-wise. And Dubai seems to have a much younger, more energetic crowd of like-minded people that have come there to really do business and build stuff. Plus, they've got 20 of the best golf courses in the world in Dubai. It's so good. Singapore, you've only got 1 or 2 that are okay, and they cost way too much money. So Dubai is... and I've been traveling for... Well, I say traveling. My mum calls me a gypsy, so I don't have a house. Been traveling for 20 years or so, or I haven't, 15 years maybe. Yeah. And I think Dubai is almost thinking about that could be where I get my home. Maybe. Because you can have the... Like, for instance, in Bali it's nice, but it's... Well, as a foreigner, you don't own the land properly, so that's a little bit off-putting. It doesn't have the big infrastructure. It's a little bit too far away from Europe and from my mum and my dad, and you can't have that Uber penthouse with the views out on the things. It doesn't. So Dubai has all that, and that's why I'm kind of thinking that might be where I go.
Are they making it more welcoming then for those that do want to move or invest?
Extremely well. Very easy. Yeah, very easy. It was very quick for me to get the residency card there. And it was strange because living in China for 10 years, I was never a resident. Every year I had to renew my work visa. Every year. So I could never really... I couldn't properly own property there. It was just a bit strange not knowing if next year I was going to stay. I didn't want to buy any stuff. I didn't want to live there. So I was constantly living in a rented apartment. Whereas in Dubai, within 2 weeks, I owned something and I was living in it. So it was quite a big difference for me.
How is it for, if I may ask you that, how is it for women in Dubai?
Well, I know a number of very successful women there. Very successful. A girlfriend of mine, Lee, she's running a company called Luxury Living. I mean, she's making millions of dollars a year. She's a 25-year-old German Vietnamese girl. There's no like a bit like Ronda Rousey when one of the people asked her, do you think they should be paying the women a bit more? And she says, I get paid because I bring the money. There's no one giving freebies out there. If you bring in value and you're working hard, no one's gonna do bad to you because you're a woman or because you're wherever you're from. It's all about you bringing the value. They don't care what you look like or whether you're a male or female. It doesn't matter. And actually, one of the most interesting things I found is that being in China for so long was quite interesting because over there, the word racism is a bit weird because it doesn't exist in China. They don't have that. They just say exactly what they think. And then you have where we're from in England, everyone says, "Oh, England's so racist." It's like what? But when you're in UAE, everyone's an expat. No one's from there, so we're all equal. There's no one thinking, I'm originally from here, you're not, or whatever. Everyone is on the same playing field. So everyone treats everyone the same. And it's really quite powerful, actually, and something that I've really noticed since being there. Living in China, I was never a Chinese. I could never be Chinese because I don't look Chinese, right? But immediately in the UAE, obviously I'm not an Emirati, but I'm the same as everyone else that goes there that's not an Emirati, and I feel that is quite powerful.
No, that's a very good point. Now, where's the microphone? Because George had a question, right? I haven't forgotten about you, George. Right, so we'll get the microphone to you. While we're doing that, just so you know, people here in Bali who are watching, so now SpeakuP Monday has been about 4.5, 5 years, And for a long time, friends who've come on the show, or like Carol over here has been coming for many years, Rob, where's the follow-ups, right? You know, like you have a show this, next week another show, where's the follow-ups? So tomorrow, here at Tropical Nomad is a follow-up. It's only taken 4.5, 5 years. Hey, we got there in the end, right? Never give up, never give up. So now what it's about is like this. What happens if you get into trouble in Bali or Indonesia? What is it that you do? Now, if you're a person who's not in trouble, how do you avoid getting into trouble, right? From the aspects of criminal, visa, and so criminal, visa, what's the final one? It's going to hurt me. Thank you. Tax, business. Thank you very much. So if you're here tomorrow, either tuning in, starts at 3 p.m., we'll go to 5 p.m. We have like 3 or 4 experts here in Bali in those different professions. Now, here's the thing, right? There's a great word called co-competition. So everyone knows about competition. Co-competition is a word that I was introduced to about 10, 15 years ago from a business partner called Dr. Paul in Sydney. What it means is that those companies or people who are either in or seemingly in competition with one another collaborate together to increase the size of the knowledge and increase the size of the pie for everyone. So whereas before you may have been a big fish in a small pond from that perspective, now you're a small fish in a very large pond, but everyone ends up, it's like a quadruple win. I win, you win, they win, we win, right? So so tomorrow we have 4 incredible experts in their field, which are in competition with one another technically, but they're great people and very good at what they do. So there's Dodo from Bali Solve, there's Reda from Emma Hub, there's both Keld, over here, Keld from DDC, and his wife Lamia, who's amazing, and the final one is me. There you go. So if you're around tomorrow, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, make sure you come. So, Brother George, we're going to have the last few questions and we'll begin to wrap up. Over to you. No, it will take you now.
Okay. So now you're obviously doing some stuff in Africa and Uganda, because you haven't really spoke a huge amount about this Bitcoin and how that's going to work. How are you finding being in Africa, doing business in Africa with governments and local people there? How are you finding the challenges of that actual business there itself? Because a lot of people do business in Africa, but there's also a lot of outcomes that aren't sort of okay for businesses and investors in Africa.
I can't really talk too much about it. I have a local partner there that I've known for 15 years. Okay. It's risk versus reward, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I was just wondering how you're dealing with
governments. You're dealing with
emerging
countries and economies. There are very high chance that you get burnt. So, but if you're able to be successful in those places, you're also able to make significant returns. So I guess everything is based off how much you're prepared to risk and how you mitigate those risks. We haven't started the project yet, so I can't really tell you exactly. We're still in the underlying part of it, agreeing all the terms and contracts and stuff. So difficult for me to answer that. But I could say, for instance, in China, dealing with business out there, we always used to say that you had to keep something in your pocket whenever dealing with the Chinese, when the contracts weren't really worth anything. You had to just maintain a position of they always needed you for something. And that's how I did it in China.
Yeah. Okay.
George, I know you probably have a follow-up question, but I have a question for you, which I think is going to be great, right? So this is called SpeakuP Monday, Destination Indonesia, and the whole point around it is that if we look at, without going too deep, which probably means I'm going to go deep, is that when you look at media, whatever, there's an agenda that can be in place. A show like this gives an opportunity for those people outside of Indonesia who may be thinking about, should I come? What kind of people are there? What are they doing? What are they up to? It gives them a direct connection to what is happening here right now. So in life, I have two things. You can either be a participant or a spectator. None is better than the other, but it's important to know who you're dealing with, right? So if you're, let's say you're playing football, easy one, being an Englishman, right? So you know how the game works, but on the field of play, the rules are slightly different, and you may not know what's happening on a micro level. The difference in knowledge can be the difference between winning and losing. So the reason why we do this is because we speak to people who are active now, who are doing this now. What is working on the field of play now? Not a theory or this should work or could work. It's this is what is happening now. So it gives an incredible window of opportunity to see exactly what people are doing here. Now, having said that, you've met Rhonda, you've met Nigel, you've met a few other people here. So George, obviously I know you a little bit. The project that you're doing,
yes,
right? Can you keep it to a minute and a half? Let's see, but let people here know what you're working with. I think it's a great project.
Yeah. Okay. So we're working on building complete, sustainable, social, and affordable housing communities that focus on the actual communities themselves, which include education, climate change centres, healthcare centres, pre-cancer centres, pre-diabetic centres, organic farming, solar, hydrogen, fresh drinking water to the taps. How long have I got? Because I'm getting close.
I know. But you only, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
you got another minute. But
oh, good.
Tell us how many, the number.
So we're looking at building 5 million homes here. We
Stop. 5 million homes.
Yeah, across Indonesia over a 3-month period. No, just joking. 20 years, and part of that is all about the future of the next generations. So we're focused on Gen X, Gen Y, the next generations. We're actually working a lot in the UAE with the government. I've been working with them now in the UAE for 18 months, and we're part of the ADGM, which is the Abu Dhabi finance government, and we're actually setting up a $10 billion green bond with them at the moment. Going back to what I was saying earlier, the UAE is fantastic at the moment. They've got COP28 on next month. It's booming, and it's a phenomenal place to be. I'm actually meant to be going there on Saturday as well. And they've got the Grand Prix on this weekend, which is fantastic. But yeah, in general, our whole plan was originally Southeast Asia. But we're really focused on, all the latest technologies. We've got our own Web3, Scope 3 now. We've got our own blockchain, our own tokenizing the community. No waste will leave the community. It will be turned back into products and stay in the community. And yeah, we're really focused on that whole circular economy within the communities. So the education's a big play for us. Our social housing program is about educating people, teaching them how to be tradespeople, giving them jobs in the community so they can work in the community, but they're smart tech construction guys now, because all of what we do is basically smart tech.
Awesome, mate. You did good. So look, this brings us on to probably the last couple of questions, probably. So I remember in your bio, right, it was talking about the future, right? So there were several aspects of you. It's like, did you write your bio? That's okay. He didn't write his bio. Oh, dear. The question's gone. We're done. End the show right now. Joking. Don't end the show. All right. So glancing at the future, right? Because again, you've been in lots of different fields. Not lots, but maybe 4 or 5, right? Different aspects. Again, we've heard from people like George. We've heard from one people like Rhonda. We've heard from my brother over there, Nigel, right? When you glance at the future, and I don't want to lead you too much. We've spoken about cryptocurrency, we've spoken about Bitcoin, we've spoken about the collapse of the USD, we've spoken about those aspects there. We've spoken about different areas of this region, about how they're attracting foreign investment, foreigners like you to move there, right? So bringing all of these things in mind, and I'm guessing as well, what you can see happening in the world right now, maybe in our mother UK, what's happening in there, what's happening around Europe, the US, and so on. So casting like a cursory glance into the future, right? For this region, you can include Dubai if you want to make it easy for yourself. In this region, if you can reach this, it's great. If you can't, it's okay. If there were 3 maybe important either trends or 3 areas that you think you really need to double down in these areas, or like 3 ways of thinking, because our thoughts create our life, right? Our thoughts create our life. So choose any one of those 3 that you like, that resonated with you. Cursory glance into the future. What would you say? No, but it's all about whichever one resonates with you.
Well, I feel like a lot of those answers are very like cliche, aren't they? Like, for instance, the first thing I'll say is AI. For me, our phones are an extension of ourselves. If without having an iPhone now, if I have one, you don't, you can't compete with me. That's all. Right? And AI is going to become a tool just like an iPhone to enhance humans. I think the way of thinking, people have to stop worrying about being replaced by it, but just realize that the trend has always been the same, is that humans on our own are actually the least efficient mammals on the planet. But when you put technology into our hand, we become the most efficient. And AI is just going to be a way to enhance ourselves. I think this, the kind of the Neuralink stuff with Elon Musk is going to be very prolific, because again, it's going to be natural competition between people. Once people are connected and they become, let's say, superhuman, or I'm able to access information faster than you, again, you will not be able to compete with me. You will have no choice but join the revolution of those kind of things. So I think a lot of that stuff is going to come in our lifetime. It's going through, and kind of my lifetime, we've changed so much, because when I was born, there weren't really any computers around, whatever, and then the internet came, and then iPhones, and then social media, and then AI, and crypto, and then, so all of this is happening at a very fast pace. But I would just say that having a mindset that these things here are not here to replace you, they're here to enhance you, and it's a natural journey of human evolution, I think.
The reason why I asked that very confusing question, respect Sister Rhonda, for a couple of reasons, right? So one is that when I see you looking at me, you're like super focused. So I like to mess with your mind a little bit by asking you all these questions, so you can't hold on to anything, and then you pick the one that's true for you, right? That's one. But also the fact is, jokes aside, that I've seen you as a person who has, in his own way, kind of dominated different industries, which seem to be very different to each other. So in other words, you're a person who is able to be malleable. You're a person who's able to be quick on their feet. You're a person who's able to, as you mentioned, one of your greatest gifts is being able to select the right partners, right? Is a story that I keep hearing recurringly this evening, right? And then also you're a person who hasn't been afraid to travel to different countries. So if I ask most people here, would you go and live in China? It's probably most people probably say, no, thank you. But you did it, right? If I ask most people in this particular audience, right, are you into crypto? Are you into Bitcoin? Or do you approach it as Nigel echoed, with a sense of, this is a bit too volatile for me? Probably most people would say, yeah, it's too volatile for me, or I don't understand it, therefore I don't want to follow it. So the reason why I ask you these questions is because, I value your opinion on kind of how you see how these different industries you've been in can kind of move towards the future. And obviously the one that George asked about Africa and seeing how that pans out. It'd be great to get you back on the show in a year or two's time to kind of look back at that and kind of see how that turned out for you. I also like the way that you approach failure, and the way that you're saying, look, being belligerent. By the way, everyone knows what belligerent means, right? Yeah, there's probably a few people here that don't. It's okay. So belligerent is like, how would I describe belligerent? It's kind of like, I believe in this and nothing's going to sway my opinion. That to me is kind of being belligerent in the face of people saying, hey, change your mind. No, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing, right?
It was actually a negative word. It was a negative word a few hundred years ago, actually.
The connotation was negative, yeah, but you've turned that around to something which is positive, right? In the sense that that's been a key to your success. So, wrapping everything up then, right? Yeah, so I'm a person who believes about qualities that one must learn, qualities that one must cultivate in order not only to have success, but in order to deal with the downtimes and deal with all of those, right? So now belligerent is the one you kept on saying, but I'm going to move that one out.
The other one is just don't be afraid of failure, I think.
That's it. So the last question is, if I asked you then, because most people experience fear, right? Fear of trying something new, fear, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out as I would have thought it would have worked out? So is there like a formula for you, or is there something from your past that it just got you over that hump? Because that is the key to entrepreneurism at the end of the day, right? I know belligerent is really important, but at the end of the day, it's being able to keep trying without loss of energy.
I think once if you realize you're a competent person and you have value, regardless of whether what you're trying to do now works or doesn't, then you can always find a way tomorrow to provide value to someone else and be remunerated for it. So if the particular project I'm working on doesn't make money, doesn't work out, it doesn't matter because I'll just do something else the next day. So I think making yourself competent is probably the most important thing. And then, so fucking what? Just if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. Just move on to the next thing, I guess. But I don't think about it in the way, like I'm not really thinking about being scared of it because just don't think about it like that. I can still wake up and have a good shit in the morning, right? It doesn't matter. So.
Round of applause, everybody. To end like that is a way to end. See you next week. Thank you very much. Thank you.